Thank you so much, colleagues, for joining on time, as Trevor said, and want to welcome you to the World Whistleblower Day webinar. So this is collaboration between ourselves, the Ethics Institute, as well as the Whistleblower House. And what we want to do is to, sort of educate people a little bit more about what is whistleblowing. And we tend to hear a lot of the negative things in the media, but none of the positive developments. So we're hoping you get to learn a little bit more what the Whistleblower House brings on offer. We've also got a guest from the Whistleblowers, which is a service provider. And of course, towards the end, we'll give you an opportunity to ask us questions. So as I said, just to give you a brief breakdown, we're going to have the Whistleblower House with Cynthia Stimple and Douglas. And then it'll be followed by a whistleblower testimonial by Irene van Wezel. Thereafter, we'll give you a brief explanation in terms of what is the ethics certification, what the TI Safe Reporting Service certification, which will then be followed by a good friend of ours and someone we've known for a while from the Safe Line service provider, Whistleblowers. And from there, I'll just take you through what are some of those whistleblowing publications that we have. And just to kick off the session, we always ask ourselves, do we need whistleblowers? Of course we do. Without the whistleblowers, we wouldn't get to know about all the malfeasance that happens or just the exact details. And secondly, that we wouldn't get to see the Zondo Commission, which was, for me, a blockbuster. So that being said, I'm going to introduce the Whistleblower House, Ms. Cynthia Stimple. Cynthia, would you like to share your presentation and come on screen?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. This is a collaboration between the Ethics Institute and the Whistleblower House, just to share our services and to highlight what we're doing and how we support whistleblowers. We offer 4 services as the Whistleblower House, and the first service we offer is legal services. We negotiated and contacted quite a few legal firms, roughly over 40 of them, but to date we work with 12 active legal clients who provide services to us with each of our whistle assistants over disciplinary hearings. They also assist with the CCMA hearings. And should the client need to go to labor court or perhaps even a higher court, depending on where the matter is, they would provide the assistance, obviously in discussion with Whistleblower House. We've been able to negotiate settlements for those matters which could be settled with our lawyers. And we've noticed more and more that whistleblowers suffer to obtain their UIF, their pension funds, or outstanding salaries, and our legal firms have been able to assist with that. And then for those who have not yet blown the whistle but would like to do it and make a proper protected disclosure, we found that we will refer them to the legal companies that can assist them to ensure that it is done safely and try to prevent the occupational detriment. There are also various toolkits on our website which you can obtain and access. So going to either our website or the Ethics Institute, and Corruption Watch as well and PORI, you'll find all that information together for making a protected disclosure. The next service we offer is counseling services. We've realized the impact that it has on whistleblower lives is the trauma that they face. And many cannot even see it until it's too late. So one of the services we offer is the counseling services, that as soon as a whistleblower has come on board through us by completing an onboarding form, we will recommend that they do take some counseling services if they have not already ticked it off on the onboarding form. The impact for the counseling services is that it helps them just align and assess where their mental health is at that stage, together with giving guidance on their physical health. We initially worked with Psych SA, we gave pro bono services, and now we're working individually with counseling services, and they will provide you with sessions to and individually align sessions to your time. So if you need to see them physically, you can organize that. If you'd like to see them online, it will be done according to your schedule with your counselor that's been assigned to you. We've also got a dentist who's offered services together with psychiatric treatments. Most of our counselors that work with the individual whistleblower would recommend when a client is in need of psychiatric services, they would recommend it and write to us, and we would then obviously give them the go-ahead to proceed. We've also started assisting with medical bills for clients that need to see doctors. Most of the whistleblowers have lost their medical aid, their livelihoods, they cannot earn. And this is where the service comes in, and many have been able to obtain these services through the Whistleblower House. The third service we offer is a financial stipend. If you go to our website, you will see that. It's also listed in our onboarding form. And as explained earlier, that our whistleblowers do lose their current income and future livelihood because it is so difficult for whistleblowers to find jobs in the future. They have to either reinvent themselves, do something totally different. I know of a whistleblower who has a doctorate in procurement, and to make an income, he started selling T-shirts. So it's that type of where you're just doing anything to bring money in, to pay your bills, to put food on the table if you have children. And therefore, many whistleblowers have also lost their homes and their assets. And so what we do is we've now, through our board, have approved an amount of 90,000 Rand for this year for whistleblower, which is paid. It's a once-off amount. So it means you cannot come next year and apply for this amount again. And how we pay it is 15,000 Rand per month over 6 months. We first pay the first 2 tranches in over 3 months, and then the next over the next 3 months. This is basically cannot replace your salary. However, it can put food on the table or pay those bills or put petrol in your car or pay the school fees that may be outstanding. So going forward, you need to ascertain what your requirements are as a whistleblower. You apply through, once we've accepted you as a client, in the whistleblower onboarding form, and then we will then review it and provide you with the finance should you qualify for the criteria. What we also recommend, though, through booklets that are on our website, is that you can downscale your home. If you live in a big house, you could probably move to an apartment so you don't lose your home. If you have 2 cars, sell 1 vehicle perhaps, or downscale your vehicle, buy a smaller vehicle. If you have any debt, make recommendations to your banks, write to them and find new ways, terms, extend the repayment terms, minimize the amount you're paying, reduce that so you can still upkeep and not get into a place where you're unable to service your debt. And then perhaps use your home as an Airbnb. Look at your credit cards. How can you repay them and close them? Your loans, your insurances, look and find ways of how you can manage that. And then the last is the security services. What we found that most of our whistleblowers have been threatened or assassinated. The clients we already know that weren't whistleblower clients, but whistleblower themselves in their role, like Babita Diokaran, Maremo Pena, Mospako, have been assassinated right in front of their homes. Many other whistleblowers like Ethel Williams, Tabisa Zulu, are in hiding at present. So how can we assist them as Whistleblower House? What we have done is come up with 2 services. The first one is an app on your phone, which you can use to as a safety measure, that if someone's following you or you see outside that there's a car parked, you have no idea who it is, you can press this app like a panic button and an armed response will come outside your house. Obviously, before that can happen, you will be assessed to see whether this app will apply to you, and you will then have this app which you can use then for any time you feel that you're being threatened threatened or your family is being threatened. We also have aligned ourselves and partnered with ourselves with a security company who can provide security services should you be able to go to court and you're afraid to go there should something happen to you. They can escort you to court and wait for you once your court session is over and bring you back home safely. So it's one of the services we offer from a security perspective. And then we do a full risk threat assessment on you through this organization. We're also working on a guide at the moment. How do you protect yourself, your family, and being on social media just to reduce your activity on social media, because that attracts people who are following you and watching you and where you are. Many people will eat in a restaurant or go on holiday and start posting there that they're putting themselves and their family at risk. So those are our 4 services we offer, and I'd like to thank you for the time, and I'd like to hand you over to another service provider we've partnered with. He is firstly as a whistleblower working with the Whistleblower House in his own right, and secondly now offering his expertise in recruitment for whistleblowers. Thank you.
While we get the presentation up, if everybody can see that, just in terms of background, towards the end of last year, Cynthia and I got together and we had a discussion about what we believe is a real hole in the whole whistleblower setup. And that was the fact that a lot of whistleblowers just simply can't find jobs. So we decided that we needed to come up with a system or a proposal. And that's what I want to take you through today, is quite simply what we are trying to achieve in terms of whistleblowing and some of the challenges. The real issue, I guess, is that the question is, why do we need to employ whistleblowers? And the fact is that whistleblowers, when you get right down to it, are normal people. They are people who have been very brave. They have said no to corruption. And because of their conviction and bravery, they have borne the brunt of reprisals, discrimination, and the fact that we have a system in this country that actually just lacks the will to act. These people are not narcs, tattletales, and pimpies, and our belief is that they deserve a chance the same way as anybody else. And we need, as an HR employer community, to stand up and assist them. Now, if we go through some of the issues that whistleblowers face and why it is so difficult to employ them, the first thing that comes up is that the term whistleblower in our language, in fact, is problematic. In the slide that I've just shown you, you can see that the terminology that is used is all negative. And unfortunately, this has led in our society to the second point on this slide, and that is that management's perception and that of society is really one, and I think it's best encapsulated in the idea that we love to hate whistleblowers. We all know they are necessary, but trust me, when they come close to us and we as the employer need to embrace them and take them on board, we kind of get cold feet. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but also there's the fact, and I think Cynthia touched on this as well, that a lot of whistleblowers need a tremendous amount of help. Some of them have been absolutely broken by the experience that they've gone through. They've lost their incomes, they've lost families, they've gone through divorces, they are struggling to make ends meet, and that has caused a major blow to their dignity, their self-confidence, their self-esteem, and they are full of self-doubt. And this is an area that we need to deal with before they can be re-employed. The other thing that is a problem is that those of you that know recruitment will see that at the moment, recruitment is being done more and more on a faceless tick box, send in your CV. If the algorithm picks up that you're a suitable candidate, you make the shortlist. If not, you simply don't. And then, unfortunately, the other issue is this question of blacklisting. A lot of us, once we've attained seniority, we're really working in very, very small ponds, and very quickly the word gets around that we have gone up against management, we've possibly been to the CCMA, we've reported things that are not right, and unfortunately, companies blacklist people very unfairly, but they do it. And then lastly, there's the macro issue, and that is that the level of employment in this country at the moment, as we know, is very bad. And it's very difficult to get people employed in this economy. So what do we need to do? Clearly, and I think this is something that Whistleblower House is doing very well, is change the narrative about whistleblowers and whistleblowing. Then from my point of view, what I'm doing is going out there and trying to convince CEOs, top management, HR directors, that they need to, in fact, see past these prejudices that hang around whistleblowers and actually be available and engage with us so that we are able to put a case for people and to employ whistleblowers. Part of what we do is we create awareness on social media, but the ultimate thing that we need, and this is why a seminar like this is so important, is that we need access to the people that make the decisions as to who they hire, and make sure that simply because a person has a gap in their CV, because they've been dismissed and they've gone to the CCMA, that their CV doesn't find its way into the trash. So the business model that we've put together very briefly is that we will propose whistleblower candidates to clients that are receptive to our approaches. We also don't want to operate like any other recruitment agency. We don't want to charge a percentage fee of what the person's take-home pay at the end of the year is. We want to make sure that every candidate receives equal treatment. And therefore, we will discuss with the company, depending on the services that they require, a flat rate to take on a whistleblower. So once we've done that, we will then share with those companies that are receptive to us candidates from Whistleblower House and other NGOs. And trust me, people go to places like Outer, Freedom Under Law, and Corruption Watch, and they also partner with Whistleblower House and pass on the candidates that they've come across who have blown the whistle and need to be reemployed. We will clearly do a very thorough vetting of all the candidates, which is normal, but bearing in mind the candidates that we bring to companies will have already been through the Whistleblower House process, and then we will provide checks, whichever checks clients provide. And here we sound a note of caution, and that is that when you do a credit check on some whistleblowers, don't be surprised if you find that there are some issues that they have been missing payments because they simply haven't been employed for long enough. So that needs to be explained. It cannot happen through the recruitment app, unfortunately. We will also provide coaching, and that helps people prepare for interviews. We assist whistleblowers who haven't been through interviews for some time. We actually arrange the interviews, and we'll facilitate the offers. And then very importantly, we will continue to support that whistleblower for an agreed period of time until we are satisfied that they have onboarded sufficiently into that business and that the business and the whistleblower are comfortable. And bearing in mind, we don't necessarily have to have permanent employment. Contracts are acceptable, even temporary assignments. So in terms of that, then, we would offer additional services both to the business and to the whistleblower, and that is that if the company involved doesn't have ethics and whistleblower policies, we can help them with that. We can help them with compliance and the implementation of the Public Disclosures Act, which is probably part of a whole nother discussion. We will assist with staff and management training and information, and with getting them in touch with an appropriate helpline. So, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, what our consultancy sets out to do with your help is to make sure that we allow whistleblowers to regain their dignity. So if this is of interest to you and you have a sense that you would like to support people who have done the right thing and for whatever reason, after having been in a successful job, supporting a family, have now found themselves where they cannot get re-employed and their dignity, self-esteem, self-confidence is absolutely shot. We believe that the best way to address that is to get them re-employed so that all of those things fall back into place and they are able to operate in this society as functioning and very useful workers and managers in our society. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for that presentation. Douglas, I think it was quite useful and quite insightful. And it's good to hear that, you know, there's people out there like yourselves giving whistleblowers a second chance. So colleagues and all attendees, I'd like to introduce Irene. She's going to tell us a little interesting story about what happened to her. And if you have any questions, please pop them up in the Q&A. And if we have time at the end, we'll come back to her. Thank you very much, Irene. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to share my story with everybody. So I'm going to start by saying life is filled with challenges and beautiful opportunities that sometimes appear as a double-edged sword at the time to learn lessons and grow as a human being. Oftentimes, these challenges test our character and moral compass, our resilience, and our ability to face adversity, bounce back, and overcome it. My name is Irene. Last year, I was presented with such a challenge to face and was really tested. At my previous employer, I was in the role of CFO and was on the executive team. And around May last year, I came across certain irregularities at my employer. And after stopping these transactions and reporting it to the board and head office for further investigation, I experienced severe internal backlash to the point where I was actually hospitalized for 3 weeks due to the effect continuous bullying, harassment, and victimization had on my health. And this all came across as a result of blowing the whistle and simply doing my job and what was right. When I went to hospital, due to the immense stress I was under, I asked to speak to a psychologist at the time, and he explained to me when you report alleged corrupt activities and it involves somebody that has authority over you, the employer and the board have a duty in terms of the law to protect you physically, mentally, and emotionally. This did not happen in my case, and despite saving the company millions of rands, I was left standing on my own with no support nor protection. And it was at this very moment that I had a very sharp awakening that I now had to take my own health and my own protection into my own hands. So when I got out of hospital, I enlisted the assistance of a lawyer to help me. And in my evenings, when I was at my lowest point, I started to research on the internet and look for answers to help me understand the repercussions that whistleblowers faced after they reported alleged wrongdoings and the impact this had on their mental, physical, and emotional well-being, as I did not have experience of this at that time. And it was during one of these evenings of searching for answers that I actually came across an interview which Cynthia Stimple did on behalf of the Whistleblower House. And during this interview, she was speaking on the reality of whistleblowers, the mental health implications, and the toll it takes on their families and the lack of protection of whistleblowers. This was the first time that I felt understood in what I was going through and realized that I was not unique or alone in what I was experiencing. It also felt comforting to watch Cynthia speak so passionately about whistleblowers from a South African perspective, and it inspired hope in me. Amazingly, the following week, the law firm who was assisting me at the time and who I didn't know was actually on the panel of the Whistleblower House to give legal assistance, recommended they set up a meeting with them, myself, Ben and Cynthia. And it was that point that I was introduced to these two remarkable people who have stood by and assisted me through one of the most challenging periods of my life. I will forever be grateful for the support, kindness, and care I've received from the Whistleblower House. And before I go into details of the support provided, I just would like to actually give everybody some detail on what you actually experience and go through as a result of whistleblowing, which is not trivial. And that is why an organization like the Whistleblower House is so important, so that to support people like me, so that future whistleblowers are not scared to come forward and expose stuff, so we can get a better environment for everybody. So I went through, and it's a long list, so please bear with me. I'm going to go through it quickly. I went through corporate gaslighting, which leaves you with feelings of self-doubt and confusion. I was made to feel I was to blame and did something wrong. You lose faith in people and doing the right things, and you sometimes feel there is absolutely no justice. You experience people attacking you while you are down and treating you in an inhumane way. You experience depression, apathy, anxiety, negativity, and sleepless nights. And you have this disappointment and emotional roller coaster each time a lawyer's letter gets sent back and forth. You feel worn out sometimes as the employer strategically may drag out the case. So when you're finally offered a package, you get offered and take the minimum because you lose the will to fight as it gets dragged out so long. You deal with betrayal from colleagues, subordinates, excos to members, friends and family. Whistleblowing is a very lonely journey. You have health problems mostly related to stress, like weight gain or weight loss, constantly getting sick due to a weakened immune system caused by stress and a lack of sleep. You get your issues you raise being minimized and being trying to sweep under the carpet. You get mounting legal bills, and you feel that your career and everything you've worked so hard for has been destroyed simply because you chose to do the right thing and what was actually expected of you in your role. You also sometimes experience mobbing behavior from fellow colleagues, which is instigated by those involved in the alleged corruption. And all of this really leads you to feel burnt out and overwhelmed. And it is really an exhausting and experience. And that is why, for me, the support I received from the Whistleblower House came at the right time and was a ray of light at the end of what felt like a very dark period and experience I had to go through. And I'm going to go through some of the services which I received and my experience of them. So I had the privilege of talking to and meeting Cynthia, who was an enormous pillar of strength and inspiration during this time when you are purposely feeling isolated. So she really stepped in and filled the void of, having her phone me in the evenings, for example, where I was feeling overwhelmed or down, and so generously sharing her time, experience, advice, and wisdom with me, as well as offering and facilitating the support services offered by the Whistleblower House. And she assisted not only with the emotional, but some of the financial burden as well. Thank you for your personal touch, Cynthia, and offering foresight in what to expect as the months progressed and got dragged out, which helped me preempt what was coming next and remove the sharp edges of the unpleasantness that comes through such a process. Through the Whistleblower House, I also received counseling sessions from Naropi, and she's one of the psychologists on the panel. And through her insight and compassionate nature, she helped me through the emotional effects that months of bullying and victimization had on me. This process also awakened me to how in this world and the corporate world, everybody's moral compass is so different, where some choose to turn a blind eye, others jump headfirst into a bottomless pit of greed and power, and others actively resist venturing into such a bottomless pit. And others actively also stand up and voice their opinion on wrongdoing. This process therefore made me reframe ethics and my reality, but by realizing everybody has a different compass that can be extremely different to mine, which awoken me to new insight, perspective, and truths into life. And then I also received legal assistance and financial support from the Whistleblower House. This greatly assisted me at a time I was getting concerned over increasing legal bills. Thank you so much for this assistance. It helped ease my immense anxiety as I was going through the case and as it was getting dragged out for months and months. So you may ask, how did it end also? I do have a smile on my face. So it ended in a bittersweet way. It hasn't ended totally. I'm still experiencing the effects of going through something like this, and it continues, as once you see certain things and experience certain things, you cannot unsee them. Though the whistle experience was difficult to go through, and I landed up leaving my employer at the end, what came out of this experience was a chance to reflect on my own life, people, and how the real world operates sometimes. And this was a catalyst for immense personal growth in me. I also realized that formal education of ethics is sometimes a fallacy of what we see, and we need organizations such as the Whistleblower House and all of us on this call to rebalance the order of things. As we all know the saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men or women do nothing. So I did mention at the beginning, I do have a smile. I'm feeling actually since leaving, I feel free. I feel one's, hopeful about the future, and one's broken the chains off of being in a situation like that. And that's really a priceless feeling, I feel. And lastly, but not least, you may ask, would I do this all again? And I would say definitely yes. You may not come out as the hero, and at some point you may even feel a little bit defeated at some point, but I would not do it any differently, because in my view and my approach to things is that when our time on the earth is over, we take not 1 rand or 10 cents or any of the material stuff with us, but we do take what is in our soul, our character, the cumulative effects of our decisions we've made on earth and the effect we had on others over to the other side. And I would always like to choose eternity over just the short-term material things of this world. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my story, and I hope by sharing it, it will help somebody. And once again, thank you for the amazing support, care, love that I received from the Whistleblower House. You're doing amazing work, and I will never forget the time that you've come and stepped into my life and helped me. And I will forever remember that in my life, and I hope to continue the relationship we have with the Whistleblower House. Thank you so much, and thank you for everything.
Irene, I don't see any questions at the moment, but I'm sure they're going to start popping in now. So I think after Cynthia's presentation, we'll come back to the questions and we'll try and answer as many as we can. But thank you again for sharing that story. I was one of the people who sort of were privy to it when I met you at your previous employer.
Yes.
So I know exactly what you're talking about and exactly which individuals you're referring to. So, but thank you again for sharing that testimony. It is much appreciated. I'm seeing the questions already popping in there on the chat function, so we'll get back to them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. So colleagues, quite often we see that people tend to think that whistleblowing hotlines are the ones who are giving away people's names or exposing individuals to cases of corruption and issues that have been reported. But more often than not, that's not the case. One of the two things that do tend to happen is that the way the report has been sent or reported via the whistleblowing hotline, it becomes unfortunately not easy for people to hide behind the anonymous the anonymous guarantee that you have. So if there's only 3 of you in a department and you report the issue in such a way that it becomes obvious that it's one of you, it becomes quite hard to protect the whistleblower. And then the second part also is there are people in the corporate world or whichever organization that you work for, even though the report is anonymous and it's well written, what they tend to do is they go out of their way to try and find who are the whistleblowers, and they will not stop until they've sort of gotten the answer. So I just want to share with you our Safe Line certification, just in terms of how you can receive it and what our service providers have to go through. So what we do is we provide a standard to anyone who's an eligible service provider, and if they wish to apply for certification, what we do is we start off with an application form, which sort of says these are the standards that we're going to assess you against, and it also goes along with the ISO standard for whistleblowing. So TI, what it does, it conducts a preliminary assessment of the information, and we may ask you for additional information if we're not happy with the evidence that you've provided. And it looks like at mainly 5 things, which involves your independence, your availability, your integrity, and we ask you sub-questions from those different subcategories just to find out what's in there, what evidence can you provide. Once you've given us your information, and then we conduct a site visit to the service provider to actually verify for ourselves that everything that you said is there is actually there, and you actually have everything in place. We may interview other staff members. We sit there and we observe your operations. We don't always tell you what we're looking for, but we make notes of things that we have observed. And then we try and review and inspect your documentation to determine if you comply with the standard. Once we're done with that, on completion of the assessment, we send the assessor the final report for the assessor's attention, and normally we do have recommendations for improvement that we normally include in the report. And if the service provider has actually adhered to the standard that we have set for you, then we normally give you a certification of compliance with a TI logo to say that we've audited your whistleblowing hotline. We are happy with you, and the certification is only valid for a year because things can change. We've seen service providers move from one venue to another. We've seen service providers go a little bit backwards where they lost their certification, and we've seen others improve, in leaps and bounds. So in terms of the service certifications that we have, we've got the SafeLine X certification. That one is designed for independent service providers who are hosting hotlines for clients, such as your whistleblowers and your Deloitte Tip-Offs Anonymous. And then we've got your SafeLine In certification, and that is tailored for your internal whistleblowing hotlines hosted by the organizations themselves. So there are some organizations that have a whistleblowing line, but that is internally managed. And then we also use the same standards as we do for the service providers. And then lastly, we've got one that's called the DigiX, and we say these are the requirements for a high quality digital safe reporting service by independent safe reporting service providers. And of course, if the assessment is successful, we provide a 12-month certification which must be renewed annually for quality assurance purposes. With that being said, colleagues, I would like to invite one of our longest service providers who's had the SafeLine certification to tell us a little bit more about their operation and what are some of the key challenges and problems they've encountered and how they've managed to grow. I think you'll find it quite interesting. I'd like to invite Ndogozo to come on, and you can maybe just take us through your presentation.
And it is a pleasure to be able to be part of this initiative by the Whistleblower House and by the TEI. It is awesome to be able to share such a service and to hear stories from people like Irene that are inspiring to everyone. It can be a bit scary as well, but they also give us hope and assurance in this thing and this journey called whistleblowing. So I will be sharing my slideshow just to talk a bit on our company, Whistleblowers, which specializes in whistleblowing as an information gathering service. So just a bit about Whistleblowers. The company was established in the year 2000. It was in partnership with PwC, the auditing firm, And when we saw that it was a conflict of interest for us to be partners with any government institution, any legal firms, or any auditing organizations, we became completely independent. So that partnership was ended in the year 2005, and we started specializing in whistleblowing and solely in information gathering for our clients and protecting the identity of our whistleblowers as well. So currently we are obviously starting from zero. We went to over 450 clients, and we are providing to companies in over 67 countries across 6 continents globally. So we are not only, we are based in KZN, South Africa, that's where the operation is run, and we are operating 24 hours a day, and we provide the service to clients in over 67 countries. And for us to be trusted as a service provider, it is always a question of how do we protect our whistleblowers? How can we trust that we can be safe when we call whistleblowers? So to actually get the certification, Lulama did touch on it. However, we go through a whole extensive process of ensuring that we are operating a state-of-the-art information or contact center where people can call in 24 hours a day at any time. They can contact us in more than 8 mechanisms. So it's not just telephonically. They can send us a chat bot, they can send us an email, they can send us they can contact us via the app. I'll go through the other mechanisms a bit later. However, our premises are monitored 24 hours a day via CCTV monitoring, and we have specialized training for our agents who are actually graduates, some in criminology and some in psychology, and they are trained in interviewing skills. They are trained by forensic investigators. They are trained, firstly, to protect the whistleblower, and on the other side, to gather the relevant information that will be useful for the investigation to be successful. Okay, so they work in such a way that their interviewing skills are not invasive and they're not harmful to the whistleblower. However, they gather all the relevant information that will assist and ensure that the whistleblower is safe on the one side, and then on the other side, the client's information, they can use that information to gather valuable substance on the report. So also with regards to the safety and security of our agents, I mean, our premises, no electronic devices are allowed. We don't have internet access. There aren't any recording devices in terms of external recording devices. Obviously, all the calls are recorded for quality assurance as well as for training purposes. However, in terms of getting your cell phone inside, your private PC inside, it's not allowed. Further to that, we do ad hoc polygraph testing for all our agents, all our employees. Even I'm also subjected to the same polygraph test, just to ensure that we are not misusing the information that we gather with regards to our anonymous sources as well as our clients. The sensitive information, we're not using it or misusing it for our own personal gain. So those are just some of the steps that we take to protect the identity of our whistleblowers and ensure that they don't face any backlash or any harm from the organizations. And just to add, actually, when you hear testimonies from people like Irene, who faced a lot of adverse and very terrible consequences from reporting, that should not deter employers from actually encouraging their employees to make those reports. Because with all those negative experiences, there are also quite a lot of positive experiences that are not publicized or cannot be shared with everyone. So employers do need to create a safe environment for their people or for their clients, for their suppliers to report safely, and also offer a lot of support and make their employees aware that these facilities are available in terms of your counseling, in terms of financial support, in terms of security as well. So it is also up to the employers to ensure that the employees know that there's a few percentage of people that face a lot of harmful retributions from reporting. However, there's a lot of other people that make these reports and remain anonymous and remain protected, and also offer a lot of protection for and support for the organizations as well. So with regards to how we fit in the scheme of things, as a whistleblowing line, we're not there to overtake any of the internal reporting platforms, but because sometimes you cannot trust those reporting platforms, or you would rather report to an external independent ethics hotline that is trained to receive such information, we fit in there to take that information and ensure that you remain anonymous as much as possible. So we remove anything that might lead one to surmise your identity. And in some cases, it does happen that we have clients that push to get information on the whistleblower. Who is the whistleblower? What time did they call? Was it a male or a female? What position are they in? What questions, if you ask these questions, what are the answers? So questions that are designed to sort of surmise the identity of the whistleblower. And when that happens, obviously, firstly, we discourage our clients from doing that. And we say that that breaks the trust relationship between you and your employees, which are your whistleblowers, as well as us as a service provider, which solely specializes in whistleblowing. However, if it does come to a point where the client is pushing and they're saying, listen, it's a contractual issue, we need this information, or we need this, we need the recording, we have gone as far as actually severing that contract and severing that relationship between ourselves and that client, because we cannot risk the identity of our whistleblowers. We cannot risk their lives, their protection, ultimate protection by virtue of their anonymity as well. And I think just to add with regards to whistleblowing, according to the ACFE results, latest statistics, the number one way to detect wrongdoing in the workplace is through tip-offs. It's through reporting. It's through people speaking up. It's not through your other mechanisms, your internal audit or your security systems that you might have in place. It is through people speaking up. So you need to have people to have the right platforms, and further to that, to have support from the Whistleblower House, organizations such as that, to have assurance that their jobs won't be lost, or they won't be blacklisted, and they can have an opportunity to get other employment elsewhere and won't be blacklisted just for reporting. We need to encourage people to definitely speak up more and protect their organizations. When we say organizations that need to have the greatest confidence, or the greatest confidence you can have in using an external ethics hotline provider like Whistleblowers, comes from the SafeLine X standard for external service providers, which is provided by the Ethics Institute. I mean, you look at that process and you can see what steps are in place to ensure that people are protected at all times, and to ensure that the organization is acting in an ethical way. And if you don't have an external service provider, maybe you have an in-house one already, maybe you need to just make sure that you benchmark your practices. Just check if you are acting in line with the practices that are according to the SafeLine X certification. And you will see that it's such an onerous process. You'll realize how onerous it is for to have an in-house system. Okay, so just mechanisms that are in place for people to contact us. Telephonically, it is the gold standard, and not just in Africa. Globally, when people are making reports, they do prefer to speak to another person, not to leave a voicemail, or not to send an email, or not to use the other mechanisms. However, when we look at going online, or downloading the whistleblowing app, or even the WhatsApp chatbot, now that's becoming more popular. It's the age of information. People are communicating better that way. However, the gold standard globally, not just in Africa, it is speaking telephonically and reporting whatever issues, or asking your questions, or conversing with the real person that has been trained to receive that information. And I think that is, at this point, all that I can share about our facility. Speaking to us anonymously, you can speak to us confidentially, where you do share your details. We don't share your details outside of whistleblowers. That is the core of our business. That's how we protect our whistleblowers and ensure that people like Irene don't face any adverse effects. But I think due to the position that she was in the position in the organization, it was sometimes kind of impossible. Like Lulama said, that sometimes you can just surmise who the whistleblower is. However, in a lot of cases, people can be protected by virtue of their anonymity. And that was my final slide. If you'd like to contact us, we do have contact details that are on display. Thank you very much for the opportunity to actually speak about the service that we provide. Handing over to you, Lulama.
Thank you so much for that thorough presentation and just reassuring us in terms of how fiercely you protect your independence, especially from clients who try and push for, information that comes from whistleblowers wanting to know who blew the whistle. So it's quite important. And another important thing we need to consider is having a whistleblowing management system. So it's not just good enough to just have a whistleblowing hotline within your organization. It's important to have an overall system that will actually assist you with saying, okay, when a whistleblowing report comes in, how do we deal with it? And what are some of the controls that we've put into place so that, we don't have cases of, people getting victimized. And also, some of the people who actually receive these whistleblowing reports actually are better empowered. So I'm going to just share some of the handbooks that we have on whistleblowing. All of them were written by our current CEO, Dr. Liesel Groenewald. So the first one is your whistleblowing management handbook. So this management handbook gives you an overall, big picture in terms of once you have your whistleblowing hotline, how do you manage it? What is some of the best way to report cases? Who should you report to? Who should initially be the best person, best place to receive the reports, and how you should control the whole whistleblowing ecosystem. Second one we have is the Whistleblower First Responder Guide. Now, this is quite important, not just for management, but I think for almost every employee, because here we put out stuff where you realize you are being victimized, and it's got parts that make you, because sometimes you don't even realize you're being victimized. It's very subtle. The victimization is not always to your face. It's very subtle, such as being refused to go on leave, or being sidelined from certain assignments. So it's important to realize that, okay, I'm being victimized, and these are the telltale signs. So we've got that as well. So on the Whistleblower First Responder Guide, it also gives information to a manager, because when you look at the survey that we took, the sub survey, we realized that, hold on, sometimes internally, the person that you most likely report unethical conduct to is not necessarily the hotline itself. You might start off with your own manager, you might move on to a different manager, and these people might mishandle the case, and they might not know what to do with the information, and they'll sort of give the information away to say so-and-so has reported this particular issue. Meanwhile, not understanding that if they knew how the whistleblowing hotline and what the PDA says, as well as POPI, this is how they should have handled it. So that first responder guide is really to give guidance to management in terms of how do we handle unethical conduct, especially if someone is reporting it to us. What do we do with that information, and how do you protect yourself further? And then lastly, we've got the non-retaliation toolkit. This is the one that's got a lot of information in terms of, how do we manage retaliation, and how do you, as well as an employee and an individual, how are you able to manage the retaliation that you might receive from your colleagues, or from management, or whichever organization that you're working for. And also, it's also for management to say these types of actions that you take against employees is actually retaliation, even though you think that you are trying to stem the issue, but you're really retaliating and victimizing these employees. We will share the slides with you, and you're more than welcome to download the handbooks. They are free. They're also on our website. But as Naresh has pointed out on the chat function, that we will be sharing these what you call it, the slides. So maybe Jimmy, just check if we've got Cynthia back so that she can talk us through how we can help the whistleblower hotline. I mean the whistleblower house. Cynthia, I see you back. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Lulama. I'm just going to share with you our donations page. We have a QR code which can be used for you to donate. So as you've seen in our presentation, is that we do offer the 4 services. And with one of our whistleblowers being able to share her story, I'm sure the question is in your mind, how sustainable is this? And hence the reason we need donations. So currently we do get donations from key funders, and we're very transparent about where we get our funding from. We're getting it from Millennium Trust, who have decided who were the first to fund us from when we started this organization. We're getting it from the BLSA, the Business Leadership SA, and then more recently from the European Union and the German Embassy. But we need organizations, we need individuals to also fund us. At the moment, we've got quite a lot of individuals who are funding the Whistleblower House on a monthly basis from their salaries, be it 50 Rand a month to 300 or 500 or 1,000 Rand. And some make an annual lump sum deposit into our account, and that is assisting the work that we do with whistleblowers. So we're able to pay for the legal costs, which you all know is the highest cost we have to pay to date. We pay for the counseling services and then obviously for the financial stipend which we give to whistleblowers. The security which comes in through the app is a monthly payment we pay, but on your phone, once you have that app, you as a whistleblower do not have to pay 1 cent. And obviously we pay for the assessment. So those are the costs that we pay towards assisting whistleblowers, and we are really grateful when you donate to the Whistleblower House. Thank you very much. I now open to any question and answer session. We've got time for that before we close. Thank you.
Just to ask some of the questions that I've seen that are interesting, I will start with Irene. Irene, the first question that I've seen from one of the participants, they want to know whether the culprits were eventually dealt with. We know it might be a bit of a hot potato there, but if you are willing to take...
It is a bit of a hot potato there. I don't think I don't know if I'm able to share, but I don't feel the investigation done internally was sufficient, and no, the culprits were not dealt with, unfortunately. And I feel my case was used as a distraction from what was actually going on. So it was really sad that given the opportunity where certain information was made transparent, that to the head office, etc., that they rather decided to focus on the whistleblowing instead of the actual what was happening to cut it off at its roots and solve the problem. So the answer is no, it wasn't dealt with to the extent that it should have. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. And then maybe let me ask you this in a two-pronged way. Firstly, the question that came through was, how long did you remain with the Whistleblower House during the period of your experience? And then it's sort of become, there's a common thread here, but basically they want to know, have you found any work since then?
So my case is fairly recent. It actually only concluded about a few weeks ago. So you'll see with these things is they get dragged out sometimes to over a year. Yes. And you're sitting in this horrible toxicity and negativity in like a month after month after month. And sometimes they purposely get dragged out because when you wear somebody down continuously and systematically, by the time it's to do cut ties, you just want to walk away as little as possible just to end it. So I'm taking a sabbatical for a month.
Okay.
So I haven't actively started looking for a job. It's scary to think and hear that, the experience of other whistleblowers in terms of looking for a job and the difficulty they face. So I'm hoping that, that one doesn't have to go through that experience, because it is very demoralizing and demotivating. But I think through faith and energy and looking at all possibilities, and as Cynthia said, redesigning the way you look at things, from a strict 9-to-5 job, that something will come along. And I believe that if you do the right thing and good, that finds its way back to you, whether it's immediate or a long time. So I'm on a sabbatical at the moment.
Okay.
And sorry, if you could just repeat your other question.
So you did say you are sabbatical at the moment, and then the other one was how long has the Whistleblower House been helping you, or are they still currently
Yes,
helping?
they're still currently helping me. And that's more with the counseling sessions, because it has a long-lasting effect. But they really stepped in last August.
Yeah.
So been with me for August and October. So it's almost like 8 months. This thing been going on for longer than a year. And yes, they've, as I said, they've really actually restored my hope and faith in people again. On the one side, I experienced that ugliness, and on the side, from the Whistleblower House, I realized there's good people standing up for the right thing, and there's a lot of us. So, and they've stood by from beginning to end. So thank you very much for that long period of support that I've received from them, Cynthia and Ben, and everybody
absolutely,
involved.
so much.
Thank you.
Irene, because once you are there, you're no longer Irene, you become the whistleblower. And it's good to see that the Whistleblower House works towards bringing you back to being Irene and not just the whistleblower. So we've seen that with quite a number of their clients, which is excellent that they're doing there. Thank you so much for taking those two questions, Irene. Douglas, if I can call upon you, some of the individuals would like to know how can they assist or get involved in your project as individuals and not as companies.
Well, the best way, I guess, is spreading the word, and getting HR departments and particularly management staff to understand that, whistleblowers need to be employed. Their worst nightmare is, they go on this crusade, they do the right thing, and then all of a sudden, their whole life changes. They're unemployed, and that's when the drama starts. Some are fortunate; they have money, they are able to start their own businesses.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do then is to convince and change the mindset of managers and say, look, these are normal people.
Yeah.
And yes, we will interview, even though they may have a credit record and they may not pass our criteria on a normal recruitment list. They'll have gaps in their CV. I've been in HR myself, and the minute you see a person with a gap in their CV that they can't explain, or they say, I took my company to the CCMA, well, an alarm bell goes off. And even if that doesn't happen in the HR department, when you go to the guy that you're recruiting for and you say, look, I've got 3 CVs, they're all the same qualifications, all great candidates. And he says, yeah, but what did this guy went to? Oh, CCMA, no, not so happy about that. So it's this whole issue of just changing the mindset and getting away from this kind of impimpy, tattletale knock, kind of idea. Just wise up and understand that this country is very, very corrupt, and these people are doing us a service, and we need to help them.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to, there's a good question here that says, has there been a resource specialist so that they've got a better understanding of value of whistleblowers and also how to treat them well, and then maybe just to add on, you know, corporate SA tends to support whistleblowers in public, and privately, yet they're very reluctant, as you've said.
That's exactly right.
So,
I think what was raised in a seminar we had a week ago with Cynthia is perhaps where we should be going is we should be going to the South African Board of Personnel Practice, which is where all the HR practitioners register. And you know, I was a member for many years. I'm now sort of semi-retired, but the thing is, if we can get HR professionals to understand the issues that whistleblowers go through, and you know, the other thing is, you know, part of employment equity is that you shouldn't discriminate. Now, it's not going to be long, I'm telling you, until somebody who is a whistleblower doesn't get a fair shot at an interview, and we're going to have discrimination cases based on the fact that they haven't been given a fair chance. And this is why I say that the way we recruit at the moment, a lot of companies are going over to these AI systems that simply look at a CV and they then compare. And I mean, if it ticks the boxes, that's been set up by IT people, not HR people. And it's not taking anything away from IT people, but the subtleties and the nuances are lost on them. And, you know, those things come up, and the CVs that we are trying to get through the system just get brushed away and filed in 13. That's the difficulty.
that is so true. I was actually watching a documentary on these AI systems that people are using for recruitment. And, you know, the one company admitted, it's an American company, that it's got a bias towards white guys called Jared who played lacrosse.
Exactly. It's as simple as that.
Yes,
You probably
and so
find the IT guy that set it up was a lacrosse player himself. Or
yes,
something
probably
like
went to an Ivy League school, and
Exactly.
you know, if it says Harvard,
Yes.
in you go. If it says UJ, sort of, you need to wait a little bit.
And you see, the other difficulty for me is I go and I knock on the door and I say I have this whistleblower. Straight away, I'm up against it because there's no understanding. And secondly, I want to make sure that we don't only place the financial directors that have now been thrown out of a company, but what about the shelf packer who picked up something wrong in the supermarket and reported it and lost his or her job? They're also without a means of supporting their family. They're also whistleblowers. But, you know, who's going to look after them? And those are some of the people that we're trying to pick up as well and help.
Well, thank you so much for that, Douglas. That's quite helpful. Maybe just to answer Kinosi's question, they want to know you can become a certified ethics officer. Naresh, if you can respond to Kinosi on the chat function, and we'll be able to assist you. Right. My next questions are for Ntokozo. Ntokozo, one of the questions that's come up is, you know, it seems like companies are using these whistleblower contracts incorrectly. So basically, they're outsourcing their whistleblowing to organizations like yours, but they're not necessarily following, you know, the correct procedure. They might be abusing, but that could be on their side. The question then becomes, have you looked at the contracts that you sign with them, and do you feel comfortable that, you know, there isn't any more enhancements that you could put into place to force organizations to act more correctly or more ethically?
Thank you very much for that question. And yes, obviously we are constantly looking at our contracts, looking at our business model, looking at our systems, trying to ensure that we are making sure that something gets done with the information. It does not help to ask people to report, to ask people to be ethical, to ask people to speak up when nothing gets done on the other side. Now, we do have the Protected Disclosures Act, which offer a lot of guidelines on the responsibilities that companies have. There is a specific clause on our contract which actually stipulates that companies, our clients, have to comply with the act in terms of providing feedback to the whistleblower. They have a responsibility to actually indicate to the whistleblower that we have received the information, we will be dealing with the information, or we will not, for whatever reason, but to actually acknowledge receipt and to indicate to the whistleblower that we are taking this matter seriously and we are sort of investigating or doing something about it, or we have limitations due to this, or we need further information. So the PDA actually provides for that and gives responsibility to the client, and our contracts ask that our clients are compliant with the PDA on their side, as well as our whistleblowers, as well as ourselves. We also have to ensure that there's some guidelines in terms of malicious reporting, all sorts of things like that, that have specific guidelines on the PDA, and then also just types, examples of issues that can be reported, because some of the issues are not protected by the PDA. You can get harassment being protected, but other issues maybe not. So there's guidelines. You can go to our website, www.whistleblowing.co.za, and look at some articles there. They have very, very nice guidelines on how you're protected as a whistleblower, and then what the responsibility of you as an employer is towards the whistleblower. So that's as far as we can take it. We do understand some organizations just want it to be a white elephant. They want to tick the box and say, we have this, however, nothing is happening. But in terms of the South African law or the PDA, they do have a responsibility, and we do ask them for feedback. And that's about as far as we can go with regards to that.
Thank you so much. And while I still have you there, someone has asked, you say that you keep recordings. When is the only time that you need to release them? Only through a court order?
Never. Never,
Very
even
good.
through a court order. We cannot be subpoenaed to release any details regarding our whistleblowers or any information that might lead one to surmise their identity. In fact, when a case has come forward where it's gone to court and they want the details of who brought the matters to this facility, we have sent representatives from whistleblowers to attend those cases and just indicate that an anonymous source did reveal that information, and we cannot share any details about this anonymous source, only confirm that these are the details as given by the whistleblower. And that guideline, or also that protection, is covered with the PDA.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, we can't reveal any of your recordings, your handwriting. If you've written us a letter, for example, your IP address, if that can be traced in any way. So we don't reveal anything about our whistleblowers, and we cannot be forced to reveal those details.
And you guys do workshops for organizations where it's not just the management group, but perhaps for the whole organization, because they tend to see that management gets training on it, but majority of the organization has got no idea on how to do whistleblowing. They hear about it, they've got a negative perception around it. And when they see the media, they see on the news, when they listen to radio, it's always negative stuff. But they don't get to hear the positive side of things, and also how to do it a bit more properly.
I agree with you fully, Lulama. Awareness is key. Awareness is key with regards to such a concept. And when we do our workshops, our awareness campaigns, our marketing, it is the same information across the board. So we don't share information that is different for management as well as for your suppliers. We say, this is the Protected Disclosures Act, this is how you report, and this is how you are protected, and these are the guidelines. So, and we give the same information to everyone across the board. And if there is mistrust, let's say on management level, then you don't get buy-in from anyone. Nobody trusts that there's a system that works. If you try to do your marketing or awareness internally, you maybe whisper to somebody, or you send an email randomly to people and say, there's a whistleblowing line, by the way. You don't answer all the questions surrounding this idea of being somebody who speaks up and gets protection. It's always the negative connotations and the whispering and the gossiping and that is very negative for any organization. Whistleblowing supports a speak up culture, in that not just through an anonymous line, but throughout the board, across the board. You speak to your manager, you speak to your supervisor, speak to your team leader, your HR. Everyone can be spoken to and will be treated with protection and respect and confidentiality and all that. Whistleblowing is just an aspect of that where a person can remain anonymous. So
Absolutely.
awareness is important, and we do run those campaigns, and you can actually contact us with regards to that type of training and knowledge. Knowledge is key. People need to understand that they can be protected, and even even right now attending this workshop with the Whistleblowing House and the TEI is so informative to me. I didn't know issues like Irene's happened and the protection, and she's smiling. She's not a whistleblower that is in a ditch somewhere. She's smiling and she's being supported. So that's
Absolutely.
encouraging to anyone because we're sharing information. So yeah, awareness
Absolutely.
is always key.
Thank you so much for that one. Maybe let me turn to Cynthia. Cynthia, someone is asking here that not all whistleblowers are reporting from good intent. Some of them have been lastig and they realize that, you know what, I'm going to snitch on everybody here so that I can save my back. And I think we all know we're talking about someone once arrived at the Zondo Commission and they sang a song for 2 days, naming and shaming, but they were part and parcel of it. So the question is, are all whistleblowers good, or are there some that we need to be wary of?
Thank you for that question. And I totally agree with you that all whistleblowers are not saints. You've put it correctly, sir. Yes, we've had a whole spectrum of the type of whistleblowers, as we've seen at the Zondo Commission, that there were whistleblowers that would come there, obviously, because they were part of the corruption or caught in it, and then decided to either turn state witness or decide to give evidence that they know because they participated in it. So yes, in the matters of whistleblowers who come to the Whistleblower House, we send their matters to our legal panel who will assess it, and they have a criteria of was it a protected disclosure, was it just a disclosure, and was it made in good faith, was it just somebody trying to be malicious, was it somebody who is trying to stab someone in the back, and then they will write a report and say, well, this matter is not a true whistleblowing case, are we going to support it? What we have realized that people have in good faith disclosed and may not have done it in a way that gives them the full protection, and therefore they suffer occupational detriment, but yet it was for social justice. And that's the distinction we're making, where if they've done a full protected disclosure, we will support them 100%. When they've done it, it's not malicious, but they've done it, and because they went to the internal, they went through the process, but they may have not written something correctly or something like that, so it doesn't cover them completely, we will still support, so long as it was done in good faith. That's the premise we come from, that they're speaking out. Yes, there have been whistleblowers who've come to us, but they're not reporting from an employer level. It's more that I'm a service provider to an organization, and this organization then offered me, I got the tender, and then they pulled the tender away because they either wanted to do something else with it. So we haven't assisted those clients, unfortunately, because we term those as commercial. So we haven't yet assisted. Obviously, perhaps we will start reviewing it now. We're in our 3rd year operating, and see what else is out there that we can assist. And then there are those malicious ones, which we know, and those we've been unable to assist, obviously. And I don't think we haven't really got any that were malicious coming to us. If anyone has come, it was specific requirements, and then we ascertain it through our legal firm. How can we assist? Is it valid? And then we assist. If we can't assist, we write to them and saying, sorry, your case does not fall within our realm, and hence we are unable to assist. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that one, Cynthia. And maybe just one more for you, Cynthia. So what advice do you have for whistleblowers who report a case and it doesn't get investigated? It actually gets ignored.
Okay, that happens often, actually. So that's the norm. Most whistleblowers do report it. They either report it to their senior, to the HR, compliance, internal audit, whichever is the mechanism in the organization. Many do not get investigated. So our guidance is that and our role as the Whistleblower House is to assist the whistleblower. We don't do investigations, and I always say that up front. We don't have the facilities, the resources. There's only Ben and I at this point in time, which are assisting whistleblowers, but we will help you. We help the individual. So we normally ask them, what do you need? How can you go from here to there? We want you to get back to where you were. We want you to get back your dignity. We want you to be in a place where you are stronger emotionally, where you are stronger from we cannot obviously replace your salary, and hence we offer the financial stipend, but it gives you a place where you can say, how do I look at my world differently? How do I go forward now and build myself back to where I was? And that's what we normally tell whistleblowers. But sorry, we don't do any investigations. And when the investigation hasn't happened, we can't go there. But if the story is worthwhile investigating, we connect them with companies who do, like the SIU, like OUTA, like the NPA, and we will refer them there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insight, Cynthia. And as a closing word from the Ethics Institute, I'd like to give a big thank you to our panelists. Irene, thank you for sharing your story. Douglas, thank you for your presentation and the good work that you're doing with HR and recruitment and trying to get whistleblowers back into the working space once again. So much appreciated. And to Ntokozo, thank you so much for informing us and giving us a little bit more knowledge in terms of how the safe line works and what are some of the key controls that you guys have got in place to actually make sure that people who report from your end at least do not suffer any detriment. So from the TI side, thank you so much. And let me hand over the last word to Cynthia, and then we can close. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And thank you for all your questions and comments. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Lulama, for leading us and doing the final closing for us. I see there's still some questions in the chat. Someone's got, who decides that you are indeed a whistleblower or not? The person who speaks out in the organization may not determine that they're a whistleblower. Myself, and I'm sure Irene didn't see herself as a whistleblower, and many of our whistleblowers don't see themselves. All they see themselves is, I am seeing something that's against our policies, against our procedures, against the legal framework, or something is not right, and they report it to their next best person, who is their senior, their boss, their HR, whoever. So only through that mechanism, when you start being retaliated against, when your job is at risk, when you are being ousted from your organization, that's when suddenly you realize that I've done more than I'm just thinking I'm reporting something that's wrong. And so, yes, so it's not, when you say determine a whistleblower name, the name comes with the territory, unfortunately. It's not a positive name, we know, and what we'd like to do is try to translate that now into a positive name. Maybe the name changes in the new legislation. We do not want to keep that as a whistleblower banner hanging across your head, but it's the fact that you've done the right thing and spoken out is what's important. Yes, there's Devasham has, can you report organizations to whistleblowers? Oh, that's the whistleblower with cause, or maybe you can write directly to her on that, Devasham, and I'm sure that can happen. So just to close off, we've got 3 minutes, is that the reason why we did this seminar, that there is a World Whistleblower Day coming up on the 23rd of June. And hence we decided we will do this and invite a whistleblower story and talk about whistleblowers and talk about the various mechanisms that support whistleblowers. And that's one of our primary reasons for doing it. And this term whistleblower really is a term that provokes many reactions from people. Some hate the name whistleblower, some see them as Douglas had said, knocks and impimpes, etc. And other people see them as brave and they are the heroes and that they're standing up, or that the main reason there is that these people, for me, should be supported. They should be acknowledged and they should be celebrated. So this was our way of saying, how can we help whistleblowers? How can we show that we are supporting? And we want to encourage an ethical society. And we want to encourage a South Africa of citizens who are not afraid to speak up and stand out. And that should become the norm. And hence the reason today we'd like to say thank you, whistleblowers, for taking that personal risk and standing up and speaking out. Thank you.